Hello everyone, welcome to GS Core. I'm Abhishiekh Saxena. So today's session is about the micromanagement for prelims, and we are going to talk about the subject of governance and social justice. So if you look at the preliminary examination and the syllabus for it, the syllabus comes across as very abstract, right? Devoid of any details. But to study effectively and to prepare for the preliminary examination, it is important for us to demarcate our territory. That is what we need to study and with what depth. And at the core of it lies the micromanagement of the topics dealing with a particular subject. And through this session, we'll try and deconstruct the subject of governance and social justice vis-a-vis the preliminary examination, right? And we'll try and see how we can micromanage these topics effectively to score more marks. So if we look at the syllabus, the prelims syllabus is abstract, and hence we have to fall back to the main syllabus of GS2, right? Along with this, if you look at the trends, the trends show that 5 to 7 questions on an average come from governance and social justice, right? So let us try and deconstruct the subject. I will be referring to the subject of GS paper 2, the syllabus of GS paper 2, and through that syllabus we'll try and deconstruct whatever we can vis-a-vis the preliminary examination, right? So let's try and see. So I have categorized the subject into 9 different heads for you. The first one is local government, and I will be using the lines from the original UPSC syllabus, that is about devolution of powers and finances up to local levels, and challenges therein. But before I move to that, let me give you certain broader rules. The broader rules are that vis-a-vis governance, while there are concepts, there is also a lot of current affairs which actually pin to these concepts and make for the questions in the examination, right? It might sound a bit abstract at the moment, but let me tell you how. RTI, for example, is in news, and we'll be talking about RTI in a while. And RTI might be news for the pendency of cases, etc., etc. But you might be asked on a question on the RTI Act itself, or the institution of CIC or SIC, or the powers, or the last amendment which was carried out in 2019. There is a judicial proceeding, which is going on to bring in political parties into RTI. So you might be questioned that political parties are the part of RTI or not. So in a similar manner, the current affairs and the concepts, they come together to form the questions. Also, we need to keep in mind the focus and locus approach. When I say focus and locus approach, I mean that a current news item pinning to a larger concept, a current news item actually pinning to a larger concept, and the question might be asked from locus, just the way I gave the example of the RTI Act or RTI as a secular topic, right? So this focus and locus approach needs to be kept in mind. Also, another thing which needs to be kept in mind is mapping. And by mapping, I do not mean the conventional maps that we see in geography. By mapping, I mean mapping of various entities associated with the micro topic. Okay, for example, let us take the RTI itself. So while there is an act, there is an institutions and there is a debate. Similarly, if there is a program like MG Narega, right? So Gram Sabha, social audit, center state dynamics. Okay, all these things need to be kept in mind. The stakeholders, the full form. Okay, so the stakeholders, full forms, because at times the full forms help us decipher the veracity of the statement or the dimension in which a particular policy and a program relates to. Why am I taking the example of policy and program? Because the conventional grapevine is that governance is just about policies and programs, and that is where we err. We try and memorize the entire list, a booklet just a couple of weeks before the examination, and that is not the correct way to go about the programs and policies. Because with regards to program and policies, if we do the mapping, we weave a story. We weave a story. Right? Therefore, weaving a story is key to retention and micromanagement. Otherwise, the sheer amount of information will overwhelm us and we will never be able to recall it. Remember, in the preliminary examination, it is all about identifying, recalling and retaining the information. Because largely everything that you need to solve an answer is in front of you. It's part of the question itself. Therefore, this story building through stakeholders, through relationships is vital to understand it. Also, there are so many names: PMGKAY, PMGKAAY, PMGKKAY. These names can confuse you. So the sector to which a policy belongs, that is important. The dimension which it addresses, the client groups that it caters to, the regions which it focuses on, whether it's rural or urban. For example, and a lot of you can actually check that, Jal Jeevan Mission. A lot of you think that it is there for urban and rural areas both, but do check out the website, official website of Jal Jeevan Mission. It is for rural areas. Check it if you want, right? So often these common myths which can make our choices correct or incorrect in the examination, they need to be debunked, and hence a simple memorization won't work. So with these tools at our disposal for the micromanagement of the topics related to governance and social justice, let us move to the syllabus. So I gave the first head of local government, which says devolution of powers and finances up to local levels and challenges therein. So obviously the institutions, the PRIs, the urban local bodies, that need to be understood. The reservation pattern. For example, women's reservation. Okay? Women's reservation. Also, the schemes which are run by Ministry of Panchayati Raj. For example, schemes like PM Swamitva. Right? Or urban rejuvenation programs like Amrut, Smart City, Jal Jeevan Mission, Manrega. Like I said, there is this, Gram Sabha, which is the implementing agency, and there has been a lot of news coming about Manrega, tension between center and states, etc. Then with Manrega, you have various portals which are emerging. Mind you, governance and social justice is a very interlinked subject. So while we micromanage each head in the syllabus, it is very pertinent that it has interlinkages. For example, the payments portal, the e-tracking of Manrega is a part of e-governance, which we are going to see later. So a holistic coverage through the tools that I have just mentioned are the key to actually micromanage these topics, right? So please keep in mind those tools, the various schemes which are there apart from 73rd and 74th Constitutional Amendment Acts, and their application, that is important. That brings to light the institutions of State Election Commission, State Finance Commission, right? So these are the important areas. Apart from this, the next topic which is given by our syllabus is about development process and development industry, role of NGOs, SHGs, various groups and associations. Donors, charities, institutional and other stakeholders. Institutional and other stakeholders. If you look at this particular topic, obviously the names, again I will draw reference to the current affairs, the names related to NGOs and SHGs, their concept of what constitutes an NGO and SHG, and also the applied dimension. For example, the FCRA Act. FCRA Act is like our party. So FCRA, right, Foreign Contribution Regulation Act. Okay, that is something which is very important. Also the idea of microfinance. The idea of microfinance, that becomes important. Also, how these NGOs and SHGs are part of the policy, e-governance. So you have to relate things. For example, NRLM has a component for SHGs. Social audit has a component for NGOs. Similarly, you see various other groups, association and stakeholders. The Waqf Act, for example, has been in news, right? Or industry bodies like FICCI, CII, right? So the information will come from the news, but you should have that stakeholder map ready with you. The farm groups, the labor organizations, all those need to be on your tips in terms of what they do, in what arena do they operate, what are their structures, functions, and how do they participate in the governance processes, right? So this particular head demands the addressal of these micro topics. Then moving forward to the next topic, which I call is one of the most broadest topic, that is the policies and interventions, which says government policies and interventions for the development of various sectors and issues arising out of their design and implementation. That is where largely policies and schemes come. You see, it's a very broad area, the government policies and intervention, right? It can span to policy. You have so many policies: EV policy, a semiconductor policy, education policy, health policy, right? Programs, schemes, mission, plan, a body being constituted, right? Or a new law being brought about for development of various sectors, whether it is the post office bill, the postal bill, right? Creation of a EV regulator, bringing up of roles, rules and regulations for OTT platforms, privacy guidelines, right? Subsidy given in the EV sector. So it's a very broad area. So the tools which will come handy here, right, would largely be your current affairs. And to do this for the examination, you will have to do the mapping, focus and locus approach, and the story to retain this in a holistic manner. What policy is urban rural? So there are dimensions: the urban rural character, the funding pattern. You see, for maximum the funding is 40:60. For northeastern states it is 90:10, right? But what are the exceptions that have been in news? Also the 100% central sector schemes. Which are the implementing agencies on the ground, whether it is the state government or the local government? The stakeholder map, the full form, the sector or the dimension it is addressing, the client group. So whenever you read these policies, programs, schemes, mission, plans, rules, regulations, laws, newly constituted bodies or some old body in news, okay, always keep these tools in your hand. This will help you connect and remember the policies better, because you have woven a story around it. You have simply not memorized the facts in a linear manner. Often students ask me, sir, how do I remember these things and this and that? So this is the way to do it, because if you'll study it in a particular manner, it will retain. Otherwise, blanket mugging up of facts will not take you very far. So like I said, it is the broadest area. Moving on to the next topic, that is the important aspects of governance. Transparency and accountability, e-governance, application models, success, limitations, potential, topic of Citizens Charter, transparency and accountability, institutional and other measures. Herein, if you look at this particular aspects, the concepts of growth, development, what do we mean by governance, good governance? They hold importance not because of the fact that they will be asked in the preliminary examination. They are rarely asked, especially governance and good governance, the definition would be rarely asked. But an implied meaning can make it to the examination, right? Or you can use the understanding to consume and build the story, do the mapping. And that is why they are important for you. Okay. Now, if you look at this and the other heads that we have discussed, the policies and interventions, whether we talk about RTI, Citizens Charter, social audit, institution of CVC, CIC, Lokayukta, Lokpal, Prevention of Money Laundering Act, Whistleblower Protection Act, right? All these things come into the picture. The role of social media. Okay, the various dashboards, the PM Poshan tracker, the Pragati dashboard, the CP grams, all these were the part of e-governance. Also, they were the part of policies and interventions. The developments, especially with things like, let us say, e-governance and judiciary, e-filing, e-registry, SUPACE, right? Also vis-a-vis, let us say, parliament, the legislative business, e-Vidhan portal. Okay, the geospatial sector which is coming up in a big way. The direct benefit transfer, Jan Dhan Aadhaar mobile, all those things, they become important. And if you see, the tools remain the same. The tools remain the same. Story, stakeholders, focus and locus, and mapping. To actually understand this, the tools will largely remain the same. It is just these are the interventions, these are the initiatives which the government is taking. Okay, so that is something which is to be imbibed by you. Next, if we look at the subject, we point towards the social sector, that is about issues relating to the development. of social sector services relating to health, education and human resources. Mind you, when we talk about this and the next topic, that is issues relating to poverty and hunger. The next topic, issues related to poverty and hunger. All of these include some of the hidden issues. When I say hidden issues, we will have to look at them as secular concepts, that what do we understand by poverty, various forms of poverty. Also newly emerging forms like learning poverty, concepts like hidden hunger. And along with this, please keep in mind the global developments. For example, sustainable development goals, climate, global hunger index, gender parity index. So all these indices, reports, rankings, they act as feeder to our information, because you see, they are often asked in the preliminary examination. So if we study them in a very factual and linear manner, we will never be able to recall everything to the most precise detail. We might err. What are the pillars of a particular index? The Niti Aayog's rankings. Okay, multidimensional poverty index by Niti Aayog. What are the pillars? So these things are asked. But if we simply take a compilation and study them, we might not remember them. Right? So it is important that we weave a story, and that is how we will be able to micromanage this particular topic. Hidden are the issues of, because health, human resource development are there. So skill, sanitation, waste disposal, sustainable development goals, sustainable development. So all these things come into the picture. The concept of feminization of poverty, the various data which are, conflicted, the various health scheme, National Family Health Survey 5, the Ayushman Bharat Abhiyan, National Digital Health Mission, relating it to health, holistic health, mental health, health of women, children, TB Mukt Bharat Abhiyan. So ultimately, yes, it will largely boil down to programs and policies, but that is not the way to micromanage it. So we need those tools that I have talked about to correctly micromanage these topics. Okay. When we say human resource development and skill, the Stand Up India, the Startup India, the tribal development programs, agencies associated with this, the TRIFID, for example, right? The National Health Authority, all those things will come here. The Medical Council, the issues related to Medical Council. Therefore, the current affairs and the topics give us the boundary, what we all need to study. And these tools help us connect the dots so that we can retain and process this information better. Right? Various schemes, whether it is BharatNet, Digital India, Namami Gange, Jal Kranti Abhiyan, Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, Smart Cities, all those things will come here. The social security schemes and the themes, for example, the One Nation, One Initiative kind of a theme, One Nation, One Ration Card. The National Digital Health Mission, the portability of health records. So if we weave story around these themes, we'll be able to better retain it. So after the social sector and the issue of poverty and hunger, Let us move to the next. That is role of civil services in a democracy. Often there are things in news regarding civil services. For example, reforms. You had Mission Karam Yogi. Under this you had iGOT platform, right? A council chaired by the Prime Minister. All those things will come here. Also, when we talk about the role of civil services in a democracy, we will have to look at how the civil services is actually operating. You see, there have been conflicts between the state and the central government. So, civil service conduct rules which have been in news. Okay, the civil service conduct rules which have been in news. Also, the merging of cadre, right? Civil Services Board has been in news with regards to the transfers and postings, especially in the Union Territory of Delhi. Okay, the issue of lateral entrants. So therefore things, objective facts related to this are needed for the examination, but you cannot remember all of them until and unless you weave a story. You weave a story. Next, the statutory, regulatory and various quasi-judicial bodies. So this approach is going to be similar as we took with policies and laws, because you see there have been tribunals, bodies like the Scheduled Caste Commission, bodies like the Backward Classes Commission, right? So these are the bodies related to the next head, that is the vulnerable section: SC, ST, OBC, women, children, disabled, National Commission for Women. So all the programs, policies related to that, as well as the neutral bodies which do not ascribe to a particular client group, like Niti Aayog, Election Commission, SEBI. Regulatory bodies, quasi-judicial bodies, statutory bodies, Finance Commission, TRAI, NCLAT, IRDA, Medical Council, like I said, Information Commission, like I said. Okay, so all these bodies will form the part. Again, those very same tools relating to the static facts: appointment, vacancies, procedure, power, function, client group, what is the nature. There was a Tribunal Reforms Act. Some tribunals were merged, some were abolished. So the objective facts regarding these have to be woven using the tools that I have prescribed to micromanage this. And some of them have been in news, right? So that is our cue. Do remember the focus and the locus approach, which I have emphasized upon time and again, right? Along with this, the next head is about the vulnerable sections, which explicitly says welfare schemes for vulnerable sections of the population by center and states. Please remember, schemes like Mo Sarkar, Dhan Lakshmi, Mahalakshmi scheme, which have made it to the national news, those are also very, very important, because you might just be asked the state and the scheme. The GI tag, something which has been conferred, a tribal community has been benefited. So a clear mapping of vulnerable section, schemes, program, location, objectives and weaving a story around it. Also, it is not just the schemes. The syllabus further says mechanisms, laws, institution and bodies. Constituted for the protection and betterment of these vulnerable sections. So when I say institutions and bodies, the Scheduled Caste Commission, the OBC Commission, National Council for Protection of Child Rights, the laws associated with them. For example, POXO was in news, right? Women's Reservation Bill. So you will have to link these things up to come up with a comprehensive picture for children, Atal Innovation Mission, right? So all these have to be woven in micro details to micromanage it. Now a lot of you would be thinking, what are the sources? A good source for this is the India, a book which is popularly known as India Yearbook, which comes. It gives a detailed mapping of which ministry, which scheme, which client group. The Economic Survey. Right? It also gives concepts, the various schemes in news, along with data. Websites like Vikaspedia, PRS Legislative Research, and the ministries and institutions and programs' own website, apart from the newspaper. So if you tap these sources and build a holistic inventory of sorts for yourself and weave a story linking that inventory, you are sure shot to hit maximum correct answers in the preliminary examination, because often this subject is taken lightly and some compilation is picked up, right? But if we do this in a very methodical, systematic, understanding way, we can really score good marks. And that is how you can better manage the subject of governance and social justice for the preliminary examination. I do hope that this session will help you clear some perspective on how to go about this subject. For more help, you can reach out to us anytime. So that's all for this session. Thank you so much.